wish I could live through something.
Like many other teenagers in quarantine, I have been indulging in lots of coming-of-age media in order to fill the void from the loss of high school and, well, And through it all, Lady Bird still dominates in my favorite movies and remains one of the most memorable and visceral film experiences I've ever had. Lady Bird stars Saoirse Ronan and marks Greta Gerwig's directorial debut. When released in 2017, Lady Bird topped Toy Story 2 for having the most number of fresh reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. It was nominated for 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Direction, and Best Leading Actress. So clearly there is something special about this film, and the public eye was not blind to it. As a teenager, this film felt deeply relatable and very real. The screenplay does so much in such a short time, and yet I felt every beat, every up and down, and it carried with me after the viewing experience. To me, that marks the best of films. So today I will be presenting how Lady Bird is the perfect amalgamation of a coming-of-age tale. Structure and artistry. Lady Bird takes place through the entirety of the protagonist, Christine, aka Lady Bird's senior year of high school. The runtime is only about 90 minutes, yet it takes us from the end of summer to the first moments of college. If you made a Lady Bird calendar, you would see that the movie begins at an ending and ends with a new beginning. The entire film, her closing act of high school, feels like a race against the clock and towards something new. The film makes itself more like reality and appealing to a viewer in that it does not dwell on one moment or one conflict for too long.
Touch your lips to serve, I know in your eyes.
It is the small, fleeting moments and connections that define teenagedom and ultimately define ourselves. The editing is so fast-paced and leaves little room for breath and contemplation, except in very specifically selected sections. Other than that, one conflict leads into another. It is either solved or left hanging, and isn't that more representative of the lives we lead? So often in coming of age, the protagonists are grappling with long, life-changing events. Lady Bird's realism is in its quickness and simplicity, its breathlessness and its fury. The color coding of the film is intentionally playing into the feeling of a memory, as if this could be any one of our sepia-toned pasts. This, in addition with the story structure, creates an immediate intimacy between the film and the audience. The people. The friends Lady Bird makes during her time in school don't fit into any usual high school drama stereotypes. Their personalities subvert expectations. For example, the first boyfriend ends up being gay. Jenna, who seems to fit into the popular mean girl stereotype, is actually nice and down to earth. And maybe Kyle is mostly a cookie-cutter bad boy, but he's also quirky.
I'm trying to, as much as possible, not participate in our economy. I don't like money.
This continues playing into the realness of the world by presenting characters that are not defined by one prominent trait, but instead are interesting and unique. With closer examination, each character is a thematic pillar within coming-of-age tales. Let's break down each one of the 4 characters and how they play into Lady Bird's overall becoming. Julie, representing childhood. Julie is Lady Bird's best friend from the start, and their closeness suggests that they have been friends for far longer than just high school. They are able to share everything with one another and do everything together, until a certain point.
You can't do anything unless you're the center of attention, can you?
Yeah, well, you know your mom's tits, they're fake, totally fake.
She made one bad decision at 19!
2 bad decisions!
Julie, representing the childhood facet of Lady Bird's identity, makes sense because of the way she starts to belittle Julie and push her away as she finds new ways to self-identify.
She's a cunt.
Birdie, you like her?
Yeah, but she's a cunt.
At a point, she is no longer talking to Julie because she has cool new friends. Lady Bird mistakes growing up with a complete rejection of one's roots. This is a common flaw of Lady Bird's in regards to home and family as well, but we'll touch on that later. In the end, Lady Bird comes back to childhood, as she is uncomfy in the new group that she has inserted herself into.
Can you take me to my friend Julie's house, please?
Sure.
Who's Julie?
She's my best friend.
This symbol of childhood is not to be mistaken with childishness, however. Simply, Julie and Lady Bird's friendship stands to show that maturity does not negate the origins of your childhood and the person you were before adulthood. Danny, representing love and vulnerability. Danny is Lady Bird's first boyfriend, first love, first kiss, the whole 9 yards. While their official relationship only lasts 14 minutes on screen, that time is sprinkled with scenes of romance and awkward teenage love. Lady Bird does truly feel something for this boy that creates a different her that isn't the fiery, stubborn daughter that she is around her family or the witty, fun friend she is to Julie. It unlocks emotional vulnerability that feels timeless. In these 14 minutes, her and Danny are the most important thing on Earth. It helps that in the storm of fast-paced scene changes, these scenes are slow, moody, with romantic underscoring. It feels like an infinity in comparison to the rest of the film. And yes, then Danny is gay, but it just takes some Dave Matthews to patch up that wound before we move on to Kyle, representing maturity. Yes, Timothée Chalamet has appeared in all his dark, brooding glory. In contrast to the soft romance of Danny and Lady Bird, Kyle and Lady Bird are only offhandedly acknowledged as a couple by a friend.
I mean, if you're still Kyle's girlfriend, then yeah, I guess I'll see you around.
And then the only substantial scene they spend together as a couple is Lady Bird losing her virginity to him. Lady Bird is very eager to have sex with him and sacrifices her personality to fit into the crowd that Kyle is a part of. She gets the false impression that maturity is being cool and uncaring. In retrospect, it makes Danny and Lady Bird seem like children, when really Kyle's way of life is just as naive as anyone's. By the end of their relationship, Lady Bird realizes that she doesn't have to and doesn't want to sacrifice care and fun to be mature and to transfer into adulthood.
I actually want to go to prom.
Jenna, representing perception. Saoirse Ronan does an excellent job in portraying Lady Bird's manipulation of herself in order to become Jenna's friend. It is clear that she has changed her demeanor, even subtleties in her voice, in order to create the perfect impression on Jenna.
Oh, my mom made me get a job at New Helvetia to learn, responsibility.
She conforms to the popular stereotype that she sees Jenna to be, but I don't know, is it just me or is Jenna just really sweet? I just think she's super nice, okay? Anyway, Lady Bird's plan comes crashing down when she lets this false perception of herself bleed into the socioeconomic identity of her family.
I don't know, where? Ding dong, I'm outside.
What?
I'm standing outside.
No, just leave. Leave.
Jenna makes Lady Bird confront that being honest about herself, even the parts she's not proud of, is less detrimental in the long run than fabricating a person that you are not. She gets too caught up in what she thinks Jenna's attitudes are that she loses herself to please her. Overall, these four teenagers are each salient stepping stones to Lady Bird's overall growth as a person throughout the film. But we still have not discussed the most important character and relationship. Marian, Lady Bird's mother. Home and family. Lady Bird's plot essentially revolves around her relationship with her mother Marian, played by Laurie Metcalf. It's the driving force behind the story, though it is crafted with such subtlety that it is almost unbearable how artistically it ties together by the end. Even by the design of the film, two colors that stand out most in many frames are pink and blue, pink being Lady Bird's iconic hair and dress, and blue being the scrubs that Marian is frequently dressed in. The colors constantly contrasting on screen make the trend of their relationship impermeable throughout the film. Lady Bird is a love letter to the idea of home and to mother-daughter relationships. Her outright disdain towards her hometown of Sacramento and her turbulent, complicated relationship with her mother raises the questions, is creating your own identity inherently rejecting your creator, and is wanting more inherently ungrateful?
I appreciate everything you've done for me. I'm ungrateful, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I wanted more.
Let's observe. The sister at Lady Bird's school at one point comments,
"You clearly love Sacramento.
I guess I pay attention.
Don't you think maybe they are the same thing? Love and attention?"
The sister brings up that perhaps love and attention are the same, and if that is so, well, Lady Bird has a lot more self-evaluation to do. Marian, meanwhile, gives attention to everything around her. Her work in a hospital requires her to care for her patients and her co-workers.
It's for you. I got it for the baby. I couldn't resist it.
She loves pink.
The first time we get Marian alone, it is a slow, loving montage of Sacramento as she pays great attention to every sunbeam and every turn. And of course, she pays lots of attention to Lady Bird, who she truly does love. On a surface level, it's easy to hate Marian until the end of the movie when her strength finally breaks. But by watching the movie carefully, you can see that everything she encounters is approached with love. It's just not expressed traditionally. While this sounds dangerously close to gaslighting, it isn't, simply because Gerwig is sure to present that Marian and Ladybird do have an overall good relationship. It is irregular and spasmodic.
Passive aggressive.
No, I
You
wasn't.
are so infuriating.
Please stop yelling.
I'm not yelling. Oh, it's perfect.
But on an emotional level, they are connected. Ladybird and Marian are always at each other's throats, and no one ever wins an argument. Gerwig says herself,
I wanted to feel that in some ways these were evenly matched people and evenly matched talents. And
in some ways, this contributes to why Marian cannot let go of Ladybird and why her desire to go to the East Coast for college is so heartbreaking. Marian feels as though she has failed, that she has not offered Ladybird enough here at home in a familiar setting already filled with love. On the other hand, Ladybird fears the stuckness her mother feels. Breaking out of California and moving to New York is a drastic but effective way to break that for sure. For some people, it is simply essential to break out of your comfortable hometown and utilize the geographic cure as a route to self-discovery. As mentioned earlier in the theme of childhood, Ladybird often pushes things away in order to pave her own path to find herself. Like childhood, however, it all comes back. What Ladybird's disdain for home teaches us is that you can never truly erase your home. Where you come from, whether that is a place or a family, is irreparably part of your identity. One can grow and change, but you cannot continue to grow if you rip out your roots. And likewise, growing does not mean ignoring where you came from. The notion that it is ungrateful to want more and to want to become your own person is toxic and wrong. Ladybird eventually does change her thoughts on home and her family. It just takes a move to New York City. Ladybird.
It's never actually explained why she calls herself Ladybird, or why she picked that particular name. She just did. And I think the thought behind it is sort of like the way an alternate name can give you an alter ego and something that you can escape into, and kind of in the way that, like, you know, Beyonce has Sasha Fierce and Madonna and Cher and all these people. It's given them this other sort of status, like, within their own head, and allowed them to be creative and, you know, be this other part of themselves. And I think that is probably the thought process behind it for her.
Ladybird is not the best person. She has a lot of flaws, some that make her seem selfish and even mean, but overall, they're relatable faults. Part of this film's intention, I think, is to expose ourselves on screen, the ugly, personal bits that we don't want others to experience. That is what we get from Ladybird: raw, intimate, heightened emotion. While Ladybird doesn't necessarily have an explicit subplot of wanting to discover herself, she is constantly implicitly seeking approval from her peers, her family, etc.
But do you like me?
It is an all too relatable fear that we will not be good enough for the ones we love. When Ladybird finally gets her dream of going to school in the city, she changes.
What's your name?
Christine? My name is Christine.
While Ladybird anticipated that she would become the most like herself here, she's ditched the name Ladybird and resorted back to her given name Christine. The irony in this is that while she has effectively left her hometown and her family, she recreates herself in some way to reattach herself to them. She didn't need to do that while she was at home, and in fact needed to create Ladybird to create her own individuality while still living in the shadow of home. This proves my earlier statement that home can never be erased. Cut to shortly after this.
Hi, you've reached the McPherson family. Please leave a message. Thank you.
The filmmaking of this end scene sweetly carries Ladybird's final arc in the film, the realization that her life is just beginning, and how grateful she truly is for where she came from.
I love you. Thank you. Thank you.
So, why is Ladybird so perfect? Well, because we all have a home we come from, and we all choose to leave it eventually. When that time comes, as it is soon for me and many of my classmates, it's not reinvention, it's just the beginning of our own lives.